and welcome, Mark. I am, uh, if it's possible, even more excited than Annie to have you here.
No, this is good. It's good.
I really appreciate you joining us today. And with the extensive experience and exposure that you have had with the Postgres community, and not just the exposure, the influence you've had, I think that your insights into the evolution and where Postgres is headed is absolutely valuable. I hope the audience is going to enjoy this conversation as much as I am looking forward to it.
No,
So,
thank you, thank you. And I just
yeah.
came back from Postgres Day France, which was yesterday and the day before yesterday, and also great attendance and lots of the topics that we're going to discuss today were also important topics there. So good.
Excellent. So just kind of spinning off from how I said that you've been around the Postgres community for a long time. I think it's been what, a decade and a half or something. Uh, close,
13
close to
years,
a
yeah.
decade.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, I'm sure that you've seen a certain evolution of Postgres, not only in the way the technology has evolved, but also how the technology has been is perceived in the industry. Compared to, let's say, 15 years ago, tell me about your impressions. Tell me how, you think people saw Postgres when you started off and how people see Postgres today.
Well, I tell you a personal anecdote. When I went to the first Gartner Summit, I think in 2012 or 2013, together with Ed Boyajian, who was at the time the CEO of Enterprise DB, we had to tell people what Postgres was. Postgres, Progress, Progress software, Progress database. There was a lot of confusion. Very, very few people knew Postgres, right? So the mission at the time was to evangelize for Postgres. Well, that's completely changed. Today, everybody's using Postgres. The question is much more, how far can you push it? Or can you help me figure out, how far I can push it in my stack, how mission critical, how tier 1, tier 0 applications can be supported that way. And then now recently, how does it help me with new modern applications that have a different architecture, that are microservices focused, that don't just differentiate between transactional analytics and AI, but applications that do all three things together, right? Do them at the same time. I mean, think about a shop floor control system. Um, it also drives reporting panels over every manufacturing line where you can see at any moment in time the number of failures, the throughput, everything. So transactions and analytics is the same thing today. And Postgres is extremely well positioned to do that. So to your question, um, 12, 13 years ago when I got started with Postgres, the question was really much more, what is it? But now it is really just how far can I push it, and how fast can I get onto Postgres?
So that's a very strong indicator, or a strong statement, I would say, that going from having to tell people what Postgres is to the point where you kind of take it for granted that everybody knows Postgres. It's just about how far you can push it. That's a pretty big evolution. And there have been surveys out there that kind of track some of that popularity, and especially with application developers. Maybe based on what you have observed with application developers and over the period of the last 5-6 years, you can share some of those insights of how you've seen that evolve.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And you always have to understand there's a certain lag between what developers do and what executives know, right? And a lot of my conversations were at the executive level. So today, at the executive level, Postgres is a thing. Now, interesting enough, it's not really a topic of conversation because it just works, right? And economically, it's very, very interesting. So why should a CIO, CTO talk much about it? Because it doesn't cause problems. It doesn't make the phone ring in the middle of the night. It just works, and it's a very economically interesting alternative to commercial products. But when you look at that evolution, let's say over the last 6 years, and I think the data that you're referring to is the Stack Overflow survey, where 6 years ago, we're now 6.5 years ago, when they did the survey in 2018, about 30% of developers reported using Postgres. And every year that has inched up. I think in 2023, it was for the first time #1 over MySQL, SQL Server, etc. And by the way, things like Mongo that a lot of people talk about are like far down the list. They're in the long tail, actually, even though
Yeah.
they get a lot of press and a lot of commercial success. But from a developer usage perspective, the top players were always, MySQL, Postgres, SQL Server, Oracle. But when you look at the evolution from 32% usage in 2018 now to 51% in the 2024 survey. So not just is it the one that is used most, it's actually the majority of usage now. So, and that is really radical, because you have to think about that developers also maintain legacy. They don't just do new stuff. So in there, you have to factor in that probably, I don't know, half of that, 2/3 of the world's IT effort goes into maintaining stuff. A lot of that stuff was built on MySQL and SQL Server and Oracle, etc. But still, that percentage is pushing really, really hard. To me, that means that in the innovation space, so where we do new stuff, not maintaining stuff, the usage of Postgres is probably even much, much higher, in probably 70, 80%, if not more. The rest is maintaining stuff that was done 5 or 10 years ago. That's something that we shouldn't forget about. These statistics don't describe the whole picture.
That's a very interesting insight. I mean, there's this data that's kind of lurking behind the data. That, you look at the overall usage, but that overall usage kind of contains the legacy systems as well. And if you look at greenfield applications, new applications, Postgres probably comes in at a very high, a lot higher percentage.
Correct.
Let me digress a little bit. I mean, we've been seeing reports now about how forums like Stack Overflow are seeing reduced traffic, and maybe developers are no longer that involved in Stack Overflow. They're more involved with some of these LLMs and AI agents, and asking questions from ChatGPT. Do you think these numbers are tainted in some way because of that shift, or a pattern shift?
I don't know. I don't think the numbers that we now talked about are tainted, because we were talking about data collected in 2024, when the hype or craze towards ChatGPT and DeepSeek and others was not as strong yet. I am personally very, very concerned, because I often use things like, I personally like DeepSeek. So digging into them, but I find a lot of garbage answers.